Well, the quest to fill the voids left by Calais Campbell and Justin Houston, that quest continues for the Ravens, who are reportedly set to host free agent defensive end DeJuan Smoot for a visit early next week.
Yeah, Sarah, the former Jacksonville Jaguar tore his Achilles late last season, but he's apparently doing well in his rehab and prepping to get back on the field for this upcoming 2023 season. That's according to NFL Network's Ian Rapoport. He is just 28, and he's logged 5 sacks or more in 4 straight seasons.
I'm Sarah Ellison alongside Bobby Trossett. It is Thursday, July 20th, and this is your morning Ravens update from inside the vault.
So ESPN's Louis Riddick has one reservation that's preventing him from picking the Ravens over the Bengals when it comes to the team that poses the greatest threat to Kansas City this year.
Plus, an update on rookie offensive lineman Andrew Vorhees, who Baltimore drafted in the 7th round back in April.
Yeah, we have all that and more coming up. Thanks for waking up with the Morning Vault, where you get the most important Ravens news and our opinions in about 30 minutes. All right, partner, as we mentioned in the open, according to NFL Network's Ian Rapoport, former Jaguars defensive end DeJuan Smoot is set to visit the Ravens early next week. As we know, the Ravens are looking for a little bit of help in the edge department. And as I mentioned, Smoot tore his Achilles late last season, but he's trending in the right direction. He's got a lot of productivity, consistency-wise, in the sack department over the last several years. And obviously, with no Calais Campbell and no, at the moment, Justin Houston on the 2023 roster, they could use a little bit of help bolstering that unit.
Yeah, I think they definitely need help. And I think that they for sure are signing somebody. So this doesn't come as a surprise that they're going to bring somebody in for a visit. But what is always funny is, you know, us and many people around town have been talking about who that person could be. I don't know anybody locally had been thinking about Smoot. Here's kind of the 411 on him for those that don't know him. I'm assuming a fair bit of people don't know him. So he's still only 28, so still on the younger side, on the right side of 30. He was originally drafted by the Jaguars, I believe, 7 seasons ago, and it was in the 3rd round. So he's kind of the guy. He kind of reminds me of a Raven third rounder, where the Ravens are really good at developing defensive and offensive linemen or other people from the 3rd round. So his first 2 years, he didn't really do much as he was developing. And then suddenly that 3rd year, he kind of busts out. And he's just been kind of this model of consistency ever since. At least 5 sacks in each of the past 4 seasons. I have a feeling that he would have been more prized. He probably would have been signed by now if he wasn't injured. Obviously, he was injured on December 22nd to that Achilles. So that obviously hurt him in coming back. And so last season, he was doing great. He had 5 sacks, 21 tackles, and a forced fumble in the 15 games he had played for the Jags. At the time that he went down, he was tied for the team lead in sacks. And then he had the 32nd best pass rush grade among all NFL edge rushers. And that's according to the grades by Pro Football Focus. So certainly a guy that has brought a lot of consistency over the last few years.
I saw a video that you were tagged in here by a member of Ravens Twitter. It's @GameMedicine is his handle. Mills RX is his actual display name, but he's a medical professional. And he kind of put together a timeline because, as we know, the Ravens are no stranger to torn Achilles, right? Like Tyus Bowser and David Ojabo have both suffered that injury in the last couple seasons. So it's taken some time to get those guys back to playing mode. And Mills RX, based on, his bread and butter within the medical profession, decided to put together a little video that detailed the timeline for DeJuan.
Biggest injury concern I have with him is, of course, he tore his Achilles, as we know, late last season. Now, I believe it was in December, and if it was in December, we're about 7 or so months away from the initial injury. Now, torn Achilles take about 6 to 12 months to fully heal, so he's within the range, and he's well within to his rehab program, so that's good. If if we do decide to sign him, he's going to need a full training camp, and he'll need some ramp up time to get back to full game action. I put him somewhere between early to late. I know it's a wide range, but early to late September, he should be ready for game action. But yeah, it's good. It's good that we're getting a look at such a very promising player, because we need help on the defensive line.
There's no question about that, and we appreciate Mills RX for his expertise in that category. But Sarah, you actually dug up some video of Dawuane rehabbing back in May, and he was looking pretty mobile for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing ladders in that video. Obviously, this is audio only, so we can't show it, but he's doing these ladders. He's jumping up and down. He's putting weight on it. Yeah. So, I mean, 5 months in, obviously we're no experts in this category, but 5 months in, like you said, he was pretty mobile. So it's been 2 months since then. And by the time, September rolls around, that'll be 9 months in. And so it's hard to know. Maybe Mills RX is correct. Maybe it is around September. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why the Ravens are bringing him in for a visit. You can pretty much guarantee that he will be meeting with trainers, and they will have a physical, and they will get all sorts of images on that Achilles to see where they're at. But it oftentimes, it's hard to say. I mean, he said it's 6 to 12 months. I'm sure that depends on severity, right? I mean, Tyus Bowser, he injured his Achilles literally the last game of the season. And he did end up coming back towards the end of the season to help the Ravens out. I know we've seen Terrell Suggs come back crazy fast. So it does all have to do with how severe it is, combined with how quickly you can heal. What's interesting about him, so this is kind of my question that I don't know that we have an answer for yet, but I've seen a lot of people ask, like, does this close the door? Like, if the Ravens were to look at his Achilles, and they're like, yeah, we feel like he can contribute this year in a meaningful way. And let's say RX Mills is correct, and it's around September. Okay. And again, we don't know that that's what it is, but let's say all those things fall into place. Does he take the place of perhaps re-signing Justin Houston? Or is this more trying to replace what Calais Campbell brought? I know that Smoot is pretty versatile. I was reading up from Jaguars reporters. He is very versatile. He can, stand up on the edge, or he can go inside, 3-tech, 5-tech, all that kind of stuff, which reminds me a little bit of like a Pernell McPhee kind of a role. Pernell McPhee was not Calais Campbell, but he also isn't Justin Houston. It's more Smoot. So I don't know if this takes the place of Houston. I guess it all depends on the money. Once we know the figures, then we'll know exactly what the Ravens think they're getting out of him. But what do you think? Is this more of a Calais move, a Houston move, or a guy who can do both? And then they're gonna have him in there, and then rely on their younger guys who are more David Ojabo being like the pass rusher on the outside linebacker, and then some of these other younger guys in the middle.
I guess sack wise, it kind of matches up with what Calais provided last year, right? We said that Dawuane has logged 5 sacks or more in 4 straight seasons, and Calais finished last year with 5.5 over 14 games. So what? And he's
but it's less about the sacks. To me, it's less about the sacks and more about filling a role. You know what I mean? But maybe they're just finding different ways. Like we've said, it's going to be a committee to kind of bring that up. I am curious if this would close the door on Houston.
Yeah, I am too. You're right, because Calais was so valuable. Aside from put sacks aside for a second, what he did in the run game, what he did at the point of attack, just in the trenches, setting the tone, and obviously the off the field stuff too, as a Walter Payton Man of the Year award recipient back in the a couple of years ago. You can't put a price tag on any of that. My hope is that they'd be able to do both. I mean, I saw Cliff Brown, your former colleague, Ravens staff writer, say recently that he thinks that Justin is going to be a part of the 2023 Ravens. So I'm hoping that they're able to do, especially with the cap flexibility that they have with Lamar opening things up, that extension and whatnot. I'm hoping that they're able to do 1-year deals for both of these guys. Maybe Dawuane gets more than one. Justin will probably, if Justin happens, it's probably going to come at some point, during training camp, like it did last year, in the form of a 1-year, veteran minimum type of thing. Then again, He logged 9.5 sacks, and it was the team lead last year. So you want to talk about a little leverage, right? Justin's got some leverage.
Yeah, well, what's crazy is you'll remember, like, in the beginning of the year, the Ravens were just, like, crossing their fingers that they could get through with Justin, and, like, it was bare bones. They got, like, JPP. Like, maybe that's more like what Smoot is. Maybe he's more of, like, a JPP kind of a role, which would leave, obviously, the door open for Houston. But, yeah, so they were just trying to wait for guys to get healthy, like Tyus and then Ojabo and all this stuff. And then so they like, Houston went crazy in the beginning of the year, and then he didn't have to do as many reps later in the year. So I was reading a fan had asked Jeff Riddick after this signing or after this news of Smoot, and they said, so is he for sure going to be coming back to the NFL? And if he does, is it for sure the Ravens? And Jeff was like, well, my understanding is he does want to come back to the NFL, but it's not like Baltimore or bust. You know, like, I'm sure he'd get interest from several places based off of what he's been doing. So, or based on what he did last year. So I think it's definitely a situation to watch.
Definitely going into next week, because Ian said it was early next week. So we'll be on the lookout for sure. Yep. Shifting gears back to an earlier conversation from this week, this whole preseason prediction conversation surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs and which team outside of KC is the biggest threat to the reigning Super Bowl champions. Some folks have the Ravens, others have the Bengals, others have the Jets. I mean, take your pick. It's a stacked AFC. Mike Greenberg from ESPN, the Bills, sure, absolutely. Jaguars could be in the conversation. We could go on and on here, but Mike Greenberg said it best. He thinks that the AFC is the most stacked that it's ever been in the history of the National Football League. So that just gives you an idea, and that's a historian right there. Obviously, Mike is legendary in sports radio, and now he's on the television side of things. But Mike's been around for a long time, and for him to think that this year could be the most stacked tells you all you need to know. It's a gauntlet and then some with a capital G. So anyway, Louis Riddick, widely respected, former player personnel guy, former player. Would not be surprised if at some point he makes his transition from TV to a GM slot. I know he's interviewed at a bunch of different, well, not a bunch, but I know he's had one or two interviews for general manager vacancies in the last couple of years. Anyway, he talked about who is best to potentially be a threat to the Kansas City this year.
I think they're going to be right there. There's no question. And you know, in the context of this conversation about who is the bigger threat, who is the biggest threat to the Chiefs, the only reason why, well, there's a number of reasons why I picked Cincinnati, but the reason why I would put Baltimore below them is because of that uncertainty surrounding Lamar's meshing with Todd Monken and how quickly they can get it going. Look, it looks great on paper. It's going to sound great all during the offseason, during OTAs and mini camps. Everyone's going to paint a perfect picture. Now, how's it going to happen in real time? What's it going to look like in real time? What's OBJ and Zay going to look like in real time? How's Mark and Andrews going to, really produce in this offense relative to what Todd Monken likes to do, which on paper, it should be fantastic considering what he did at Georgia with 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 wides in the back. Baltimore's built for it. They're built for his style. I just don't know how it's going to actually play itself out in real time. In Cincy, everybody's back. The coordinators are back, the head coach is back, the quarterback is back. Every integral part of that football team is back, and they added pieces. That's why I picked Cincinnati.
So, Sarah, I'm okay with that, and here's why. I don't think he's expressing doubt. I think he's expressing hesitancy, which is fair. To me, it's fair to wonder whether or not what looks pretty immaculate on paper will translate immediately into wins and contending. Right? First year offensive coordinator, essentially a first year wide receiver room, aside from a couple guys, first year scheme, lots of stuff on Lamar's plate, the pressure of being, extended, even though he's never seemed to feel pressure. It's going to be there. There's going to be a ton of national attention, all those things. Like, I'm okay with that because I still feel like Lewis at the top expressed like almost as if, and he didn't say this specifically, but it's almost as if he's cautiously optimistic. And I think that's fair, or cautiously optimistic. I don't know if that's the right word per se, but clearly he was a little hesitant and he's giving Cincy the nod. And I'm okay with that for now.
Oh, 1000%. Like there's some teams that are going to just look the same, right? Like, what you're going to get out of KC. You know what you're, for the most part, going to get out of the Bills. You know what you're going to get out of the Bengals. Obviously, we don't know quite about the Jets just because it's, Aaron Rodgers is going over there. So there's going to be, I'm sure, some different things. I don't know that you can translate what he did for the Packers all the way, but you kind of know who Aaron Rodgers is by now. And so we just talked about this in our last show, that when Sal Powell said he thinks that the Ravens are going to shock the AFC North, right? And and what we took from that was like, because it's going to be so different, right? Now that's the way he said it. The way we've been talking about it is that he's just going to try to better marry the run game with the pass game. So to Louis Riddick's point, like if it's going to shock these other teams, it could shock us as well. Like, and then again, more to Louis Riddick's point, like, but it's only going to shock if it all comes together, and we're all assuming it will. And here's the thing: under the Greg Roman offense, we found the ceiling for the Greg Roman offense. The ceiling was definitely 2019 when it really did shock everybody. But then he could never evolve it into this incredible rushing attack with a respected passing attack. He could never do that. So that was the ceiling. That was it. 2019 was shocking everybody with this incredible rushing attack. And don't get me wrong, obviously Lamar led the league in passing touchdowns that year too. But it was kind of like, it just caught everybody off guard. The thing about Greg Roman's, while we knew what his ceiling was, we also knew his offense had a nice high floor, right? Like it was like we knew what the bare minimum was going to be, and we knew that a handful of teams couldn't handle it. And so we don't know the ceiling for Todd Monken's offense. We don't know the floor for Todd Monken's offense. What if it's lower, than the floor from Greg Roman's? Who knows? Now, I think we're all super excited with all these new wide receivers, the freedom that Lamar Jackson's going to have, all of it. But I get Riddick's point where it's like, it could all be awesome, but because I don't know, because I haven't seen it, because I haven't seen that tangible evidence, I'm going to go with what I have seen, which is the Bengals. So yeah, of course, that's completely fair.
Yep, more than fair. And Louis is one of the more level-headed guys out there in sports media. So that's that. Just wanted to mention that. Also want to mention some wide receiver news around the NFL that got a little bit of run on Wednesday, and Adam Schefter tweeted it out that Jets wide receiver Denzel Mims, who is a former 2020 second-round selection by New York, he was informed that he will be waived if he's not traded. Brian Kaz first reported this from the New York media outlet there. But again, the initial tweet here, the initial reports were that he had already been waived, but he hasn't technically been yet. He's been informed that he will be waived if he's not traded. Now, our girl Josina Anderson, friend of the show, tweeted out late on Wednesday evening an update. She's told that the Jets and the Lions are having exploratory trade talks on Denzel Mims. There's a little bit of energy there, she says. Her understanding is that Mims is open to that possibility. So let's see what happens. But I think the reason why we brought it up is because another one of our guys, one of our trusty guys, the Athletics' Jeff Zrebiec, who came on the show recently within the last month or so, he retweeted this. And as you and I both know, Jeff is extremely selective with his retweets. So I'm just wondering if the whole revamp, are they completely satisfied with the revamp wide receiver work that they've done, Sarah? Because I didn't think there was any more room for improvement here.
Yeah, I don't think there's any more room. I think you're right. I don't think we would have even brought this up if Jeff hadn't retweeted it. It kind of just made me wonder that if in the past, maybe the Ravens had conversations with Mims, and that maybe he knew that there were just conversations because he talks to, agents also. So I don't know all GMs check in on everybody. So maybe there was a conversation in the past that maybe stuck in Jeff's head or whatever. But if I were Denzel Mims, I wouldn't want to come to Baltimore, because what he's really looking for is, as a former second round pick coming out of Baylor, lots of people loved him. it just really didn't catch on after like an initial spark, his rookie year. And then he was injured and then just never really caught on again. So he's looking for like a brand new start where he actually has a chance to like do a lot. And I just don't see that. I don't see that in Baltimore. There's just, I just think there's too many other guys also vying for that type of opportunity. And I would think he'd want to go at a place where he's got a little bit more of an opportunity. And I also just want to see, I'm just so focused on Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and OBJ and Nelson Aguilar and all these other receivers that I just don't see it happening.
If I'm not mistaken, not only were the Ravens interested in Mims in the 2020 draft, but I want to say that I remember some speculation or some buzz surrounding Mims as a potential trade target, or the Ravens maybe placing a call, which is, again, that's not news. They do that for, they do their due diligence on hundreds of players, I'm sure, every year. But I think maybe that was the connection there, that there had been a little bit of flirtation in the past. So anyway, something to look out for. Perhaps he lands in Detroit. Several quick hits before we jump in this episode. Back to Jeff. He recently wrote, and I'll let you actually take this because I believe you read the piece and I did not, but something about Lamar related to training camp or preseason time.
Oh, just that in his preseason or pre-training camp kind of storylines to watch, he had spoken quite a bit about Lamar and like what to watch there. Nothing new that we haven't spoken about. But then he just said that Lamar probably won't play much, if at all, in the preseason. Because it's Jeff, it sometimes seems like news or whatever. But that is exactly what I can't imagine many of the starters, at least returning starters. There will probably have to be some guys who are projected to be starters but need that time, like an Ajabo, or somebody like him would probably need some preseason. But I do not anticipate Lamar Jackson stepping a foot on a field in the preseason.
You think JK will want to?
Yeah. Don't even start.
I'm not even going to go there. Okay. We'll keep it moving here. We'll talk a little bit about a Ravens rookie that we probably won't see this year. And this is probably one of the major reasons as to why. Rookie 7th round offensive lineman Andrew Vorhees. He was placed on the non-football injury list this week. So as Jeff has written on Twitter, team officials have said that, he tore his ACL right at the NFL scouting combine, as we know, still put up major bench press rate, which tells you all you need to know about him. But team officials, as Jeff has noted, have said that he will likely miss this entire season. So call it a redshirt season, and who knows, maybe he's, a starting offensive lineman for this team come 2024, because there was a lot of buzz on this dude coming out of, I believe, USC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's this year's Ojabo, although obviously not like a top 10 kind of guy, but the same type of thing. This made me look up really quick, Bobby, how we were looking last year at this time. On July 22nd, so we're still 3 days away from that, and we'll probably still get an official announcement of who will be on the non-football injury list. And Vorhees is on that one because he wasn't injured at the Ravens. So we'll still find out who's going to be on the PUP. But July 22nd, which is 3 days from now, the Ravens had announced that Ronnie Stanley, Tyus Bowser, Marcus Peters, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Ardarius Washington were all starting on the PUP list. This year, I think the guy who has a chance of starting on there is Patrick Ricard, maybe a couple of other guys, but I think the vast majority of guys that are injured besides Ricard are expected to ramp up within training camp. So, I mean, just this list, it was just like brutal. Those were leftovers from the year before. We are in such a better spot at this time this year.
Oh, for sure. Life has changed significantly. I can remember that really well. And then, of course, the Ronnie thing, right? Like, I can remember doing one of our earliest episodes because we're coming up on a year of our show's existence on the 25th or 26th. And I remember like early on, like Ronnie there was no information around him. They were tiptoeing around it. They weren't releasing anything. They were, basically answering around, certain topics related to Ronnie. And he took his time on his way back, no doubt. And, Harbs may have had some opinions on that. I can remember thinking, but clearly, he wanted to wait until he was comfortable to get back out there. And man, the fact that that's not even a remote conversation right now is awfully refreshing. So wanted to talk a little bit about a former Raven back in the day and an NFL Hall of Famer and the current head coach of Colorado at the college level, Deion Sanders. I know you had a great relationship with him during his brief time in Baltimore. He's going through it right now. His body has taken you talk about guys taking a toll, like he's set to undergo 2 more surgeries, and he's had several procedures already this offseason, but 2 more surgeries are coming up on his leg and his foot today. He's going to have work done on his left toes to get them straightened out in hopes of, hopefully they no longer give him pain when he wears shoes. Remember, he had to have 2 toes amputated on that same foot after complications from a surgery he underwent in September of 2021. So again, this is his second surgery in 4 weeks. He had blood clots removed in his left thigh and below his left knee back in June. And he had indicated at one point that he would need more surgeries. So it looks like that is either these or potentially that's something separate because he has blood clots in his right thigh as well. So, man, obviously thoughts and prayers out there to Coach Prime, who's going through it right now.
Jeez. Yeah. It's a lot going on. That guy is a fighter. He's so kind of like what we had with Ojabo. Like you just attack it, you fix it, you figure it out, you do what you got to do to get better. So much love to Coach Prime. Hopefully all these surgeries work out and this is the back end of everything and he starts getting better.
Also along the lines of off-season workouts as we get ready for training camp. We know, by the way, like we mentioned earlier this week, that rookies have officially reported to their portion of training camp. So the season is here, but the veterans are getting their work done elsewhere. Nelson Aguilar, Isaiah Likely are putting in some off-season work, according to Nelson's Instagram, with a couple QBs under Lamar and Tyler Huntley and Anthony Brown. We'll see if either one of those guys make the roster. Anthony Brown, probably not likely unless, knock on wood, there's some sort of injury. And then we know that Tyler Huntley's going to be facing off with Josh Johnson to be Lamar's primary backup for this upcoming season. And partner, I got to get this in here because it's hot right now. Sunday Night Baseball, first and foremost, for those of you who follow the Orioles baseball, the telecast, the ESPN national telecast, is making its return to Camden Yards in Baltimore for the first time in 5 years, which tells you a couple things. One, the Orioles are legit. And two, ESPN cares about them and they think that this game's going to mean something against the Yankees. Here's why. They're tied for first place in the AL East for the first time this season. They now start a series. They're traveling in the air as we speak right now down to Tampa Bay. They're tied with the Rays, and they're the 8th team in the history of the American and National Leagues to not be swept, meaning they haven't lost every single game of a single series in 70 consecutive series. That is insane. Jeez. And it tells you this team is finally in the new era of Orioles baseball. I know you're in Columbus, so I'll just say, I live a square mile from these stadiums. This city has Orioles fever right now. They are young and tough and gritty and fun. And I know that you and your son are coming to town next week and you're looking to go to a game. So I think you picked the perfect time.
It is funny because I'm coming out for training camp and then to meet you. And yeah, we're extending our stay by a couple days just so that we can come to Orioles Yankees. We're super excited.
I love it. And happy belated to your oldest as well. Super exciting.
Thank you.
Birthday week in the Ellison.
He turned 14 today. Yep.
That is awesome. Awesome. All right. With that, we wanted to shout out and thank 2 of our returning patrons. As always, we do it every single episode, and we appreciate these guys and gals, Blake Yaspa and Patrick York. Thank you both for believing in what we're building here in Baltimore and beyond. If you're interested in doing the same, especially if you're a small business owner, we got a couple cool special opportunities in there to promote what you do. Check out what we're offering on Patreon by visiting patreon.com/ Ravens Vault podcast. Again, Sarah and I will have information forthcoming soon on training camp specials, live streams that we have coming up. We have a featured guest interview with Saleh, the rookie tackle out of Oregon, a 6th-round draft pick back in April. That will drop on Saturday morning, coming up in a day or so. And as always, thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning Vault edition. For my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off. We'll talk to you on Friday morning.